Is it safe to be licked by a dog? You may have heard that a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's, but is it really true? You probably have heard by now that that is a myth. Here is a quote by Angela Hoover from an actual print publication, called Prevention Magazine, published in March of 2023, which claims to debunk this myth: human and dog mouths are equally dirty. Just as we do, dogs have hundreds of bacteria in their mouths, some good, some bad. The bacteria Pastorella, for example, is the biggest culprit behind why a scratch or bite gets infected. Doggy smooches are fine, Hoover says, but be careful not to let a dog lick your wounds or theirs. Why not? She doesn't really tell us. In reality, dogs don't have hundreds of bacteria in their mouths, they have hundreds of types of bacteria in their mouths, which actually total in the billions, as do humans. We have different native, normal species though, and dogs carry some very, very dangerous ones that are not native to human beings. We should never come into contact with these foreign pathogens. Another source, called Veterinary Services, has this to say: no, a dog's mouth is not cleaner than a human's mouth. Both humans' and dogs' mouths are full of microbes and bacteria. However, while there are some of the same bacteria, there are also different kinds of bacteria in each species' mouth. We actually have about the same number of different species of bacteria in our mouths, around 600. Since most bacteria carried in a dog's mouth are not zoonotic, transmissible from animals to humans, you likely won't catch any diseases from your little pup. However, you might want to avoid kisses if you know he regularly indulges in eating fecal matter or other less than appetizing items. So, yes, your dog's mouth is full of bacteria, and depending on their habits, they're safe to share with. While your dog's mouth isn't necessarily cleaner than yours, it is relatively clean and you can't catch diseases from them. That sounds pretty safe to me. Let's just check out one more source before we reveal the truth. This is from Broad Street Veterinary Hospital. Dogs' mouths contain approximately 600 different species of germs, while humans have around 615 and counting. This one makes it sound like a human's mouth is actually worse. It continues: dogs' saliva poses a very low risk of transmitting germs to humans, but there is still a possibility. Dogs can spread bacterial or viral diseases through their saliva. These illnesses can be transmitted if a dog bites you or if their saliva enters your nose, mouth, or eyes. A dog bite can spread harmful bacteria to humans, causing a serious infection. One of the bacteria, called Capnocytophaga kinemorsis, can be transmitted through the bite wound. Is it bad if your dog licks you then? Because your skin absorbs saliva so poorly, there is little risk of infection if a dog licks your skin. What they don't tell you is that if Capnocytophaga manages to get into your bloodstream from a dog bite or even a lick, just how devastating the consequences can be. They are so devastating that no one in their right mind would take a gamble on it happening to them. I have shown you 3 sources claiming to give you information about the risks of getting licked or bitten by a dog. The problem is, all of these sources are pro-dog. One was a veterinary clinic. One is completely devoted to taking care of dogs' teeth. There are many more to be found, but all of them are pro-dog sources, such as the American Kennel Club, PetMD, etc. All of these sources are making money off of the multi-billion-dollar pet industry. They are highly motivated, by making money, to encourage you to be a dog owner. We have seen many times in the past, how people will conceal and twist the truth about their product in order to keep making money off of it, sacrificing the health and safety of their customers. I will talk about a couple of these later in another video. These industries do not care about your safety more than they care about the money they are making off of you. You need to protect yourself. PetMD by Chewy goes one step further, and outright lies to you on their site, with the following: "Is your dog's mouth cleaner than a human's?" Unfortunately, no. A dog's mouth and a human's mouth both contain billions of bacteria belonging to roughly 700 different species. Although we both have bacteria in our mouths, the bacteria in a dog's mouth are mostly different species than the bacteria that inhabit a person's mouth. These bacteria prefer a dog to be the host, and, thankfully, they are not harmful to people. I would like to know on which planet having your arms and legs amputated is not harmful. At least they are untwisting one of the lies here, where they acknowledge that while there are hundreds of different species of bacteria in both human and dog mouths, the actual number of bacteria found is in the billions. The sources I mentioned previously did not even clarify that, and made it sound like dogs had hundreds of bacteria in their mouths, which is very, very far from the truth. Neither humans nor dogs have hundreds of bacteria in their mouths, but rather billions. But the number doesn't really matter. Further down into the answer provided by PetMD by Chewy, they go on to say that dogs can also transmit a bacteria called Capnus etophagocynamorsus through a bite wound, which can lead to a serious bacterial infection in people. So, first they say thankfully the bacteria found in dogs' mouths are not harmful to people, and then further down they say a vague truth? Were they just banking, correctly, on people not reading the full article? I guess they were. The American Kennel Club, also pro-dog, states that a dog's mouth isn't necessarily as clean as a human's, but instead contains a different array of bacteria. That means getting bit or even licked by a dog or cat can be dangerous, besides the injuries, especially if the skin is broken. Between 10 and 15% of dog bites become infected. Some of these infections can be serious, and in rare cases even deadly. Now, why would anyone willingly and unnecessarily expose themselves to that? It is very misleading to say humans and dogs have similar numbers of bacteria in their mouths, without saying whether or not these different types of bacteria are dangerous to humans. It's not just about numbers. A person could have billions of bacteria in his mouth from eating a sugary snack, but a lick from him would still be harmless. PetMD is saying that in rare cases, an infected dog bite can be deadly, but they don't tell you exactly how you are going to die. These pro-dog sources speak in vague and misleading ways. This is a sign that they can't be trusted. They don't care about your health. They care about making money off of you from the dog industry. If a healthy, normal human licked you, all of the bacteria in the human's saliva is native to and safe to humans, so there is really no risk of getting a strange disease from a human lick. Unless they make a habit of smooching dogs. Nevertheless, you probably wouldn't want to just get randomly licked by a strange human being. In fact, it would be illegal, and would be considered to be an assault, if you just randomly approached and licked someone. Yet, people allow themselves to be licked by dogs, who have a different microbiome than us, since they come into contact with other animals' feces, including wild animals, garbage, dead, decomposing animals, other people's spit, cigarette butts, vomit, pesticide residue, and anything else that may be lying on the ground outside. Another important reason not to have a dog is that the dog will track all of those things into your home on its feet. You can't have a clean, safe, sanitary home if you have a dog. You also can't have visitors that have allergies, asthma, or chronic illnesses that compromise their immune systems. Your yard and grass will be contaminated and not safe for children to play in. Part of the myth that is safe to get licked by a dog comes from the fact that some of the diseases are not zoonotic, which means they can't be passed from animals to humans. For example, you can't get canine parvovirus, distemper from a dog. But this piece of information is very misleading. It's basically not information. It's a type of lie known as not telling the whole truth. Just because you can't get some dog diseases from a dog, doesn't mean you can't get any infection or disease from dog saliva. So, what is sepsis? Do you really need to fear it? All of the sources I have mentioned tell you that sepsis is extraordinarily rare, almost unheard of, and you really don't have to worry about getting it from your dog. The truth is a little more frightening. At least 1.7 million adults in America develop sepsis per year, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. 350,000 of those will die. 1 in 3 people who die in the hospital had sepsis during their hospitalization. Every year in the US, sepsis leads to more deaths than opioid overdoses, prostate cancer, and breast cancer combined. Sepsis is a life-threatening emergency. Without timely treatment, sepsis can rapidly lead to tissue damage and tissue death, and the dead tissue needs to be removed. Sepsis can also result in organ failure and death within 12 hours from the earliest sign of infection. Bacterial infections cause most cases of sepsis. Now, I know some of you will say, those cases of sepsis are not all from dog licks and bites, and you would be correct. Not all of them are, but some of them are, and in a lot of cases, the reason a person got sepsis remains unknown. You might now say, I have been getting licked by dogs for years and years, and I have never gotten sepsis. That is correct, but what does it take to get sepsis that one time? All it takes is a combination of you having a tiny break in your skin that you may not even know was there, or for the saliva to make contact with one of your mucous membranes, and a slight weakening of your immune system. All of us experience a weakening of our immune system as we get older. We are gradually less able to fight off an infection. An infection that you may have quickly fought off when you were 25, may kill you when you are 55. You are also more likely to get sepsis if you have many chronic medical conditions, such as diabetes, lung disease, kidney disease, cancer, liver disease, AIDS, have recently had surgery or been injured, are taking certain medications, or are very young. So, you can see that there are many instances where your risk of getting sepsis increases. A dog's mouth contains Capnus oetophaga kinemorsis, which is not native to human beings. It can cause sepsis if it enters your bloodstream, through a tiny abrasion, or if a dog licks one of your mucous membranes, mouth, nose, eyes, or genitals. It can also happen if a dog licks your hand, and you transfer it to a mucous membrane. Sepsis is such a serious condition that even a small risk of contracting it should be avoided. You might think, I have never heard of anyone getting sepsis. But you probably don't know anyone that actually got toxic shock syndrome from using tampons or actually got bacterial meningitis, either, but those conditions probably strike fear in your heart, even though there is only a small chance of you getting them. The remote chance of getting toxic shock syndrome sent everyone into a panic in the 80s after a few cases were reported, and caused companies to immediately take action. They stopped making high absorbency tampons, and included a warning about toxic shock syndrome in every box of tampons. That's because the condition is so serious, fatal, or worse, that companies had to warn their customers about it, and tell them how to reduce their chances of getting it. As with other forms of sepsis, toxic shock syndrome can rapidly progress and cause tissue death, and the dead tissue needs to be removed to save the person's life. The dead tissue usually involves the extremities, your arms, legs, and maybe nose. It can also cause organ failure. Most people regard the possibility of getting toxic shock syndrome or meningitis to be one of the most terrifying things that could happen to them. Imagine waking up in the hospital with your arms and legs amputated. This can happen to you if you get sepsis from any cause, and in a lot of cases the cause is not identified. Why do we take this seriously regarding toxic shock syndrome and meningitis, but not regarding contact with the saliva of scavenger animals? Meningitis is usually caused by a virus, but it can also be caused by bacteria, parasites, and fungi. In 1976 it was discovered that Capnus oetophaga could cause septicemia, which is blood poisoning, endocarditis, which is inflammation of the lining of the heart, and meningitis, which is inflammation of the tissues surrounding the brain and spinal cord, in humans. Obviously, those things occurred before 1976, but no one connected them to dog saliva. They didn't know why the person had the infection. Bacterial meningitis can cause death or brain damage in a matter of days. And there are things worse than death. I would say that waking up with no arms and legs would be worse than death. It is impossible to safeguard yourself from all risk of getting sepsis, but shouldn't we stay away from scavenger animals that we know have a different microbiome than us, with dangerous, foreign bacteria in their mouths, and that make a habit of approaching people and licking them on the face? Yes, we should. Just because our culture today is telling you that these scavenger animals belong in human homes, licking us and our young, doesn't mean it's safe. This is a recent cultural phenomenon. A short time ago, people were advised to never let a dog lick their face, but now dogs licking people right on the mouth is shown on mainstream TV commercials, and everywhere else. Not long ago, people were advised to wash their hands thoroughly with soap and water after having any contact with a dog whatsoever. Today, our society has decided that it's more important to make money off of the dog industry and cater to pet people's whims than it is to protect that one person from getting sepsis. In other words, no one cares. This phenomenon of keeping dogs in our homes and beds is a fairly new, recent thing. In human history, we didn't always keep company with dogs. We only domesticated dogs about 30,000 years ago, and they have only been in our homes for 2,000 years. Humans have been around for millions of years. 30,000 years in the whole history of humanity is not that long. Keeping company with mutated wolves is not a natural part of being human. It's only a recent development. But what we are doing today is unprecedented, and we don't yet know how much our present-day intimate relationships with dogs is harming our health. Only a couple decades ago, a lot of people kept a dog outside, remember dog houses, and it went to the bathroom only in a certain area of the yard. That was bad enough, but intuitively, we knew it was a hygiene problem to have animals living in the house, and to have our children playing in a dog toilet. We have now lost a lot of our past wisdom and common sense. Now, they live in the house, and defecate everywhere in the community, including sidewalks, mall parking lots, water fountains, yes, I've seen it, other people's front yards, and in front of grocery stores and restaurants. A few decades ago, people were not bringing them to other people's homes and the sidewalk and the schoolyard to defecate. People left them at home. People did not take them shopping with them, or to other people's houses. A couple decades ago, people did not let them up on the furniture, into their beds, and allow them to lick their faces. This is a recent development. In decades past, people would wash their hands after touching a dog. Now, they share food with them in restaurants. Only in the last 5 years has the situation progressed to the emergency level that it's at today. Now, you can find these scavenger predator animals, that carry Capnocytophaga in their mouths, and many other pathogens like parasites in their mouths and feces, in grocery stores, dentists' offices, emergency rooms, hospitals, high-rise apartments, elevators, beaches, hospices, schools, libraries, makeup stores, buses, Ubers, restaurants, bars, ferries, bookstores, and coffee shops, and their owners are touching their dog's mouth every 5 seconds, to give it treats, and then touching the merchandise, shopping carts, door handles, pin pads, and everything else. We have only been doing this for the last few years. What we have not done in the last few years is eliminate dangerous pathogens from dogs, thusly truly making them safe, hygiene-wise, to live among us in our homes and beds. There are many videos showing tiny babies with a large dog licking their face, and the people are exclaiming that it's good for the baby's immune system. No, It is not. The newborn baby's immune system is still developing, and the baby is actually vulnerable to infections. People are supposed to be protecting their children, not gambling with their safety to promote dog culture and certain dog breeds. You wouldn't place your precious newborn in a landfill or on the floor in an outhouse and say it's good for your baby's immune system, would you? People used to intuitively know that a tiny, fragile newborn baby needed to be kept clean. They didn't know its immune system was not developed yet, they just intuitively knew this. Again, today we have lost our wisdom. It's time to get it back. Human beings have existed for millions of years, and have only been living with dogs for possibly the last 30,000 years, and only in the last few years have humans been exchanging bodily fluids and oxytocin with these scavenger predator animals, so no, this is not a natural, intrinsic part of being a human being. Dogs did not evolve along with human beings, as a lot of people like to say, because they did not evolve at all. They have not changed. They don't learn language, speak, read, write, dress, wash, eat with a fork, invent things, or anything else that humans have evolved to do. You may think, if my baby, or I, get an infection, it's okay, we have antibiotics to fight it. Modern medicine will save me. Unfortunately, I have some bad news for you. The World Health Organization reported in 2022, that the global rise in antibiotic resistance poses a significant threat, diminishing the effectiveness of common antibiotics against widespread bacterial infections. Antibiotics are losing their power to fight infections in every part of the world, a situation that could have devastating consequences for public health. It raises the possibility that once beaten diseases will re-emerge as global killers. Unless we take significant actions to improve efforts to prevent infections, the implications will be devastating. I'm sorry if I ruined your sleep tonight, but this is the truth. We just can't rely on antibiotics to cure us of any infection we get, and to top that off, hospitals are increasingly becoming a way to get an infection, especially since we are ignoring the risks of allowing dogs in. And all of that is if you manage to get access to immediate and correct medical care, which is not always possible. Even in developed countries such as our own, there are drug shortages, overburdened hospitals, staff shortages, and rampant medical error. 251,454 deaths per year, in hospitals, stem from medical error in the US. Anytime you need to receive medical care, you are also at risk of receiving medical errors. The best advice is to not get sick. One more thing about Capnus etophaga, we are told it is extremely rare for someone to become infected with it, even though it is present in most dogs' mouths. It seems that there is every reason to believe that it is extremely underdiagnosed. Most labs are unable to identify it, so it is highly likely much more common than we thought. As I said before, many times a person has sepsis, and the cause is not identified. We don't know the true numbers of how many people get infected with this life-threatening pathogen. Stay tuned for part 2 of this series, where I will be talking about parasites you can get from dogs.